Hiruzen Sarutobi was a character who at one point was essentially a meme for just how monstrous his lore was in part 1, yet it simply never carried over very far into part 2. However, with Hiruzen being the strongest reigning Kage in the world for potentially 50 years, I want to discuss just how would Hiruzen do had he been in a position akin to Sasuke's, having to battle each of the Kage in a gauntlet-like style at a summit. But first, let's begin with a brief section of old Hiruzen's power, as he's actually quite underrated. Having trained extensively under both the first and second Hokage, Hiruzen's talent or skill and aptitude for ninjutsu has always been profound, and something that surpassed even the second Hokage Tobirama's from childhood, with him also standing as the most accomplished of Team Tobirama when they were just basically kids, which at least affirms that neither Danzo nor Kagami could match Hiruzen's level, which likely increased through fighting alongside watching the second Hokage in action, hence why he notes that the tandem paper bombs is Lord's second special. However, Tobirama's platoon wiping ability also stems from his ability to flood entire battlefields with tsunamis, even in the harshest of conditions. Yet, despite this, the second data book remarks how, like his exceptional combative ability in regards to speed, he would also take up pride in his water style. And although the physical condition was abandoned, this monstrous proficiency in water style was revived and used to aid in the death of Hiruzen himself, striking fear into the hearts of Konoha. What this means is that, like his speed, which even Madara Uchiha praised as the greatest of any shinobi in their era, the water style was one of his greatest abilities and likely attributed him to standing at the peak of Konoha. Yet, despite it being revived at its strongest and Hiruzen being at its absolute worst, having to end the life of the last remains of his once ever so promising student in Orochimaru, who also tortured Hiruzen through the revival of Tobirama and Hashirama, so that he would have to experience such a burden as he does in this fight. Yet he would still be capable of matching and overpowering Lord's second greatest abilities. The water style did manage to halt Hiruzen's flame bomb, something stated to be the strongest of all fire style in the world, something so strong that it can't even be compared to your average fireball jutsu. And although the water wall managed to stop it, when Hiruzen removes this elemental advantage, Hiruzen's mud wall completely stops any advancement from the water wall water dragon, even though it is a much larger and stronger construct. The second anime profile guides comments on Tobirama's water style water shockwave, which is used in the anime, stating that's essentially streams of water gathered into a tornado and made to explode at full velocity. The impact is similar to a huge tsunami. Yet, it couldn't put down Hiruzen Sarutobi at his worst. As this is what it takes to be Hokage. It takes the ability to stand above not just the second Hokage's greatest abilities that stood unrivaled for decades, but it also reassures that Hiruzen stands at the peak of all nations himself in all realms, which he indeed does, as stated 3 times in the first fan book, one of which stating that he also stands at the peak of Konoha, obviously, which would include the strongest Jonin Kakashi, fitting with how he, once not mentally unstable, could completely blitz around the strongest Sannin, overpowering him and knocking away the Kusanagi blade, when he previously terrified Kakashi to the point where he would preemptively activate the Raikage before unveiling the Sharingan. And Kakashi, may I mind you, is someone who even has shinobi of other nations like Zabuza or even the 4th Raikage himself revering him. So imagine what respect they would have for the professor. Someone said to know and possess all jutsu in Konoha. Someone said to surpass all the previous Hokage in his prime. Had he been at his maximum capacity against Orochimaru, the fight would have been over in an instant. Seeing as Hiruzen at his full power is much closer to his Edo Tensei variant, as we'll discuss at numerous points when relevant, but you get the point. So yeah, let's touch on many of his other abilities such as Genjutsu, Enma, stuff like that as we enter into the interactions, beginning with the Raikage. Beginning with A, he actually blasts into the room with his version 1 cloak already active, plus Darui and C standing at his guard alongside him, who Hiruzen will have to deal with first as they engage, first with Sasuke. And while I could find some potential problems with Darui's Black Lightning, which could be implied to set his lightning release as something in a class of its own, Hiruzen is stated to be in a class of his own for ninjutsu as well. But Hiruzen was also capable of matching the entire Guru Yamato statue that could overpower all 5 Kage, who've been stated to be using way too large of jutsu to try to get past this thing, and it also overpowers the Shinobi Alliance, who were admittedly drained, but Hiruzen also didn't use the complementary elements, so it could go either way, and he initially opens the battle up against Sasuke with a water wall, which we know likely can't stop Hiruzen's peak dragon flame bombs, something stated stronger than any fireball, of the which Itachi's is stated to not even be comparable to regular fire style, and even if they could, it's almost impossible for them to bypass his mud wall, something so powerful that Lord Third, and through him obtaining such a particular mastery and understanding of the soil itself, this kind of makes it one of those other jutsu like the Dragon Flame Bombs where it's in a class of its own. In a similar vein, C shouldn't provide much of an issue either, as while his genjutsu is praised as pretty high level, like his sensory prowess, his combat ability, I'm gonna say, okay, it sucks. It isn't really like Darui or the Raikages, which is why Darui just tells him to leave and go search for Sasuke's comrades, as they won't need him here. Hiruzen is also stated to actually possess over 1,000 genjutsu alone, so his understanding of how to combat C should be pretty cut and dry, with him also being able to combat other Hokage level fighters using just his unusual sense of smell and taijutsu. Digressing towards the Raikage, A in his version 1 more casual cloak could possess some problems in regard to Hiruzen simply bypassing the lightning cloak, which Sasuke's basic sword couldn't do, although considering that Enma is the strongest of all animal summons and is at Hiruzen's disposal here, this may be a way to get past it, although I would also venture to note that utilizing some form of wind release would also be extremely likely and effective, as Orochimaru, his student, was stated to have created hurricanes from his wind style, and while it's likely hyperbolic to some degree, it at least signifies that level and why Hiruzen should be able to possess that as well. Orochimaru is a character plagued by death, losing his parents and later witnessing the decline of a once god of shinobi, his beloved teacher, the third Hokage. This resulted in the maniacal transformation, one with the hope in mind that he himself could circumvent the death's grip. Like Sasuke, and Orochimaru fighting his master is a direct parallel. It symbolizes cutting off the ones you love for your lust of power. Sasuke has to abandon and shut out all of his friends, everything he knows, and Orochimaru has to finally sever the ties between master and student, something that Kakashi notes is strenuous. Hence to why we know that Orochimaru was crying at the thought of killing his teacher and forced to actually cut his own hand open to hopefully make Hiruzen face the same pain, the pain of killing your mentors. He revives the first and second Hokage. When Sasuke is contemplating whether he should unleash wrath on Konoha, Orochimaru makes the remark that Sasuke is like how he once was. He wasn't ready. All of this narrative implies that Orochimaru is merely someone who aspired to be like his dear sensei in some real sense. But I digress. This wind style usage is especially fair and quite a likely move when accounting for the idea that he would also have knowledge and be capable of utilizing Danzo's wind style attacks that can damage the Susanoo and things like this, which is a possibility as well. But I think it's at least a bottom, a bottom of the barrel thing to say that he at least has Orochimaru's wind style abilities, due to how, again, Orochimaru just kind of is trying to be like Hiruzen. However, after Hiruzen works around the cloak and damages the Raikage, the version 2 cloak will likely be opened, and then A will have a slight speed advantage for the most part in some instances, such as when he's using body flicker. A even boasts in the war arc that since Minato has died, he is the fastest shinobi alive. Despite him having the knowledge on who Hiruzen is, A boasts in the war arc that since Minato is now dead, he's the fastest shinobi alive, despite him having knowledge on who Hiruzen was, and this speed is most likely accounting for primarily his V2 body flicker attack, seeing as Sasuke just prior could react to him and nearly killed him. With this being said though, Hiruzen should still be capable of reacting to the Raikage and analyzing all of his movements. The reason as to why I state this is, like Tobirama, he can react to unstable Jubito's full speed charges in the air, although in Hiruzen's case, Jubito is actually flying, a form stated to be more offensive, hence to why he wanted to be faster whenever he was flying around Naruto and Sasuke. Jubito also then couples this speed with an additional layer of acceleration, the TSO extension, and yet despite this, Hiruzen can completely perceive the attack and analyze it to understand that its negating properties are likely akin to Oniki's particle style. This could also translate as not just an analytical feat, like how he's also the one who quickly understood the God Tree's connection to Obito before anyone else, but it could also serve as a higher level of speed as well. Seeing as in Tobirama's instance, in order for him to place the seal and toss the bombs out and move in the angle that he did, he would have to raise an arm, just like Hiruzen. Except we have nothing to imply that you could analyze the TSOs in that slower time frame of Jubito merely running at him, meaning that Hiruzen would also be moving at at greater speeds than Tobirama if you're going to assert that Jubito is relative to himself whenever he is unstable. Video with how the anime displays Hiruzen arriving before Tobirama to the battlefield, but I digress. And Tobirama is one of those characters who he's kind of a beyond KCM 1.5 level combatant without his mental afflictions. Hiruzen should also just be rivaling a version 2 Raikage, as he's nowhere out of the question, with the possibility of him being faster simply being there. This would also allow for the Raikage's professional wrestling and taijutsu focused style of combat, as highlighted in Fanbook 2, to be negated by much of Hiruzen's techniques, namely Enma, who would keep this at a much greater distance in terms of just combat, allowing for his more potent jutsu to have a chance to shine and putting down the Raikage. I suppose that while you could question Enma's power, I would also like to know how Enma could completely blast apart Edo Hashirama's wood style that was restraining Hiruzen's body, similarly to what happened with the God Tree roots, but I digress. And while yes, the wood style might have been somewhat suppressed by the Edo Tensei, it still contains all the legendary properties of the wood release technique, and it would still have the bioenergy and ability to instantly sprout leaves and stuff like that and more branches. So it's more that it actually retains the quality, but it just can't be used at the quantities that Hashirama used it in. This is kind of why the Anbu members note that he used this his chakra as a life force energy, talking about the wood style, and it would that this is the legendary wood style. They don't make any distinctions or anything like that. I would also at least say that you could affirm it being a greater ability than Yamato's, which is called the ability of God, something just by the nature. The original attributes could completely tank the Four Tails Forest level explosion and actually compete with Danzo's wind style wind bullets in the anime, which could casually draw blood from Sasuke, a much later and more powerful Sasuke, may I mind you, than the one who is actually capable of fully tanking the version 2 Raikage's lateral bolt of pain across the neck, leaving just a massive bruise. So to be honest, Enma and hence Hiruzen, they both just have ways to actually combat this higher level of defense, that the Raikage has. And if the roles were reversed with Hiruzen being on the defense, Hiruzen could actually use Enma to multiply in a cage-like fashion to protect him from Hokage level attacks like he did in the first place, which which might just scale above the Raikage's cloak, and the lightning release as a lesser Konoha jutsu like the Chidori could bypass the V1 variation, stuff like that. So yeah, Hiruzen is actually going to be stomping A and his subordinates pretty hard, but just before that, another figure steps in. Also, real quick, before moving on, I guess, to our next set of combatants, if you guys are enjoying the video thus far, then please consider liking the video, even subscribing. It would just be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Gaara, the Kazekage, will now intervene, presuming that he does just sometime before Hiruzen kills A, where in doing so, Gaara then engages in a brief battle with Hiruzen, who also will be battling Gaara's allies and what's left of Darui from the previous battle, Kankuro and Tamari. Now, quickly, to note that Tamari is stated to have the greatest wind style in all of Tsunegakure. Kankuro is a puppet user even beyond the likes of Sasori, a red technique performer, whereas improving his skills, he's now a black technique performer, greater than Sasori, implying that, yeah, he's even greater than Sasori was in his prime, which is pretty crazy when considering that these shinobi will now be trying to take down Hiruzen through their combo attack, with his goal in mind being that he just needs to solely collapse the roof to advance onto the next room, which means that if he chooses, he could, fire back offensively using techniques such as his Earth style Great Mud River, which he also combines with the Earth style Earth Dragon Bombs, something that he then adds the Dragon Flame Bombs to increase their potency in the anime. This intense combo in the anime could also just completely catch Orochimaru off guard, incinerating him, which would have ended the fight if he wasn't, well, Orochimaru. Speaking of Earth style, his aforementioned Mud Wall would likely be sufficient in stopping the combo attack and giving Hiruzen the breakthrough opportunity to use either his staff or the Fire style to then bust through the ceiling. Gaara's speed scaling above the Raikage, and more specifically the arguments for as to why he should, going off the idea of him intercepting the version 2 leg drop, has a few holes, such as while the attack is still propelled by the cloak itself, he likely wouldn't be expecting Sasuke to react in the spike formation manner that he did, so it could have been slightly slower, as he's merely been aiming for the neck as a final attack this whole time, hitting the same location as the last time. Gaara's sand comes from a completely unknown position, and what point it actually forms that is also ambiguous. Gaara does react to the Enton Wisp attacks, but these aren't implied to be similar to the one fired at either A previously or Danzo to follow. Either way, Hiruzen clears this round pretty easily, no need to spend too much time here. Now, as Hiruzen advances on to Mei and her guards with Onaki to follow, it's probably crucial to note that Hiruzen's stamina and his old man, as while we never specified what version in particular we will be taking, we have mentioned thus far that although it will be Hiruzen from the time of the Orochimaru battle, it will not be the suppressed and weakened form from that battle. Seen as in the war arc when reacting to the TSOs better than Tobirama, plus analyzing both the TSOs and the God Tree's connection faster than anyone else, Hiruzen is actually still, he still has the same 4 wrinkles and skin pigment marks from the Orochimaru fight, showing how, like in every other instance, the Edo Tensei in its replicative aspect perfectly copies the form that they had, even when it isn't beneficial, such as in Nagato's case and dude's basically crippled. These wrinkles are also a really consistent idea, with him having 2 in the Nine Tails attack in chapter 502, him having 3 in the Massacre, as shown in the 220, 400, and 590 flashbacks, and even in the the Nine Tails version was originally drawn with a mistake having 3, but Viz, like how they correct other things like Sasuke having the MS instead of the EMS in the war arc, they also corrected this mistake to him actually having 2 rather than 3, showing how it is a key feature and why he actually, when he isn't suppressed, he's actually capable of reacting to and slicing up the God Tree at the exact same time as a stronger war arc variation of Orochimaru utilizing his extending snakes. A jutsu always much faster than the user, such as when he uses it to keep up with the Four Tails. Heavy Sasuke also utilizes it in an extremely quick move to restrain both Jugo and Suigetsu. The third data book remarks that such snakes are orders of magnitude superior to ordinary snakes. Orochimaru is also virtually at full power and entering the battlefield, whereas Hiruzen has been battling this time, throughout the war at certain points. The two then also go on to potentially just fight alongside each other against the God Tree, as we immediately get the note that whenever they stopped advancing in talking about the God Tree roots, and if they aren't battling and they're just standing there observing the circus, it'd be kind of weird to make a statement like this. These Zetsu bodies also possess enough chakra to match even Kisame's, the Akatsuki member with the largest quantity of chakra, which is quite the upgrade from his previous form when fighting Hiruzen, where his body was of a character weaker than Chunin exam Sasuke. Couple that with the faster technique and the snake summons, and him being even more fresh, it's actually kind of a crazy feat for Hiruzen, but really does fit with his lore whenever he's not suppressed. And old Hiruzen still is fighting at that peak level without being fatigued, despite Orochimaru's Edo Tensei not having the supposed infinite chakra that Kakuzu's 4th data book is noted. Beginning with Mei, he shouldn't come in very fatigued, and he will be battling both her and Chodoro, who will push them into the hallway corridor. Firstly, I also want to note that while she isn't near Hiruzen's level or like the strongest of the 5 Kage, she actually isn't as weak as people make her out to be, as in terms of her speed and jutsu, she's able to blast out both her water style water pillar and her water style water dragon in response to Madara's majestic destroyer flame. She's also the first Kage to react to Madara's Cater Wall before Tsunade intercepts it, that is, stuff like that. Going back even further, she's capable of completely combo attacking and following the movements of the version 1 Raikage using her lava style, which also all just support the notion that while sure, Mei isn't in the conversation for the strongest Kage like Hiruzen or Inoki, she isn't some Kage's goon and is always an opponent beyond the version 1 Raikage and some forms of Gaara as well. She first opens the fight with lava style, and I'm not going to lie, Hiruzen, from what we know, won't have anything to directly counteract the lava style, although his movement speed should certainly be fast, enough to get through it, and likely even fire some combo attacks off of his own. When they are alone in the hallway, the corrosive acid mist should be a valid option for Mei to use, but Hiruzen could just keep the fight at like a distance within that corridor through basically any of the massive jutsu that he fired out at the Guru statue, the potency of the which we're basically unsure of, as we don't know if they were actually used in tiring out what was left of the 5 Kage or not. It still implied the Onaki and the rest of the 5 Kage really couldn't regroup because they were just using so much large scale abilities throughout that fight. So maybe they're simply just Zetsu's abilities, or perhaps the Zetsu body is using the ability of all 5 natures as a way to amplify Yamato's host body. They potentially use some of the things that he's seen throughout his life in Konoha, hence why Hiruzen has the exact same jutsu, but I digress. Any one of these enemies could completely fill the corridor, which is something the third data book states Jiraiya's giant flame bombs are perfect for, especially when the enemy is cornered, and with Hiruzen being stronger than Mei, she would technically be the cornered one here. Advancing past Mei, he'll face his greatest challenge yet, Oniki, who by this point has not yet found the resolve to aid the Shinobi Alliance, hence he's also not obtained his Will of Stone amp, if you want to call it that, and while I think that he should be the strongest Kage here, as he definitely was in the Madara fight, we don't know if he's actually as powerful as Hiruzen. In the Boruto anime, we do see a method of counteracting the particle style jutsu, and it's basically just that, well, jutsu can be fired into the center, causing it to essentially just like deactivate and explode, and if anyone would be good at this, it's Hiruzen, as he could use any jutsu he has to use this, any of the massive jutsu from the barrage used against the Guru, the flame bombs, maybe even some water style, wind style, lightning style, who cares, you name it. Hiruzen also has a pretty good grasp on the fundamental aspects of particle style and how it works, as shown whenever he intricately compares them to the TSOs in nature, showing how this advanced level knowledge is actually pretty insane, and I think the fight really just comes down to how fatigued you think Hiruzen is, and I've already laid out why he shouldn't, he shouldn't be that fatigued. He should probably be fine at least, as Zetsu should heal them should heal him in specific as he does with Sasuke, but maybe if you think he's a bit too fatigued, then I guess we can just advance on to Danzo, because he might lose here anyway if you guys think so, but I just don't want to regurgitate these same arguments. So yeah, take what you will for him. I do have him moving on though to battle Danzo. Danzo here could actually be his own video, as their battle can be extremely interesting depending on several factors, and I actually think after we explain the Danzo section and how he relates to Danzo, it'll actually make him being above the other Kage sound more concrete. In the Sakura Hiden novel, we get the actual confirmation of something Tsunade implied early on, and it's that Danzo actually did challenge Hiruzen for the title of third Hokage and lost the fight, always chasing the shadow of Hiruzen his whole life, all the way up to his death. He could never catch up to Hiruzen, as he would state to himself that he was always behind Hiruzen, and this Danzo is a character who has advanced beyond almost any point in his life due to the Sharingan accumulation, Hashirama cells, and things like this over the years, and the potential honing of even more when released techniques, which is again quite powerful, as we posited the point that Danzo's wind bullets are able to slice up Sasuke, something the Raikage couldn't do outright, with the wind style and other instances also being shown to pierce Sasuke at the same time, as stated in the chapter synopsis statement, with the most impressive feat of all being when Danzo obliterates the back of the Susanoo. And if these behind the back tactics were attempted against Hiruzen, like how Karin did in the original fight, Enma can just make callouts for him, but I digress. Sasuke by this point has already advanced monstrously, as we know that the deeper the darkness gets, the greater the ocular powers become, and the more his chakra begins to change, where his body then adapts to it, which is why every time he gets a new power, Karin makes a remark about a sudden, unique shift in Sasuke's chakra quality. And since the Raikage fight, like for example, Sasuke's got two whole Susanoo variants that are new, one of the which being so strong it's actually stated to be almost unrecognizable from who Sasuke was just prior, and even stronger, which would mean it'd be stronger than the one who was just previously healed by Zetsu. So the Sasuke that Danzo is battling is much faster and more powerful than any of the forms that were battling the other Kage previously. Now, with that being said, it's not as if Danzo was just, pooping on Sasuke. I mean, it's quite the opposite. Danzo has to die 4 times for him actually to even draw blood from Sasuke, and has killed many other times. However, this doesn't discount the fact that due to his abilities, he can actually combat much stronger characters than himself, as shown here, with him also being the only other Kage outside of the version 2 full speed Raikage to react to the Amaterasu blast as he does put his arm up, showing how even though he is an interim Hokage, he is still standing in the conversation for the upper echelon of Kage, and him conceding to Hiruzen further proves Hiruzen's scaling once more. Interestingly enough, both Hiruzen and Danzo should have at least good knowledge of each other's abilities, and knowledge is just pure stock when it comes to entering Naruto fights, as like Naruto is able to dismantle much of Pain's early game just by virtue of having a massive knowledge advantage. Both they'd also know about each other's summons, general style, stuff like that, and that's a fight I also believe would ensue, Enma versus the Baku. The Baku is an absolutely massive creature that just has a ridiculous terrain changing ability with his vacuum, and his power has probably been spreading around for a while, as even Obito himself remarks that it's a monster that devours nightmares, and that it is in fact much larger stronger than what he imagined. However, Enma would probably be the clear superior here, as when Enma is in a more prime state, yes, he does change and get weaker, he could shove the entire Ninetales out of the village, and we know that the one weakness the Baku does have would be that when Sasuke fires his fireball down his throat, and since Hiruzen's flame bombs are even beyond Itachi's fireball, his flame bombs would just literally end the Baku once Hiruzen has any chance to take his attention off Danzo, which he might be able to afford given the physical advantages here. However, I also think it's pretty clear that Danzo would draw blood from Hiruzen through this fight, just due to how he can consistently off-guard his opponents and match them to the point where even whenever he's killed, Sasuke's killed Danzo several times, Obito still states that it's the clear winner here is just going to be who outlasts the other one, right? With Danzo having the more secret plan of using the Izanagi until Shisui's eye can recuperate, and if he does pull that off, then Hiruzen's done for, although I don't see that happening. I do believe that Hiruzen should press him to where his ability to mold chakra diminishes and he loses control over his right arm. Therefore, the final question would be if Hiruzen would get caught in the reverse tetragram seal, and that'd also just probably be a no, as Orochimaru implies that his ability to interact with the tetragram is basically just of the greatest in the world, and he also knows that Hiruzen is another person who can do this, so Obito recognizes it, which probably just mean that Hiruzen could as well, therefore meaning that Hiruzen Sarutobi, even whilst old, could clear the Kage summit. But what did you guys think? Do you think he may end up losing to Onaki or Danzo? Either way, be sure to let me know, as it would be greatly appreciated. Please consider subscribing, as it helps the channel out a ton. Thank you guys so much for 10,000 subscribers. It means the world. If you guys wanted to see me rank the Hokage, check out my last video or more Hokage videos like this, as I do have a playlist on my channel. But if you guys would even want me to do a more in-depth analysis on Old Man Hiruzen, more specifically the Hiruzen after assuming his second reign as Hokage, as that's way more interesting, then please let me know, as I truly believe that if your preconceived notions are released, then he's a monster. But, anyway, more importantly, God bless you all. Love you guys.